Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this wonderful edition of Overall Office here. And you get to play Beyonce for the first song. It is because it is one of the favorites of this terrific individual right here. Multi-Olympian, five-time world champion participant, world champion, multi-time national champion, and something where it leads to be possibly a future Olympian bronze medalist here, long deserved. Give a round of applause, indeed. Shannon, great to have you here. And clearly, one of your favorite songs there is Beyonce's Blackbird. We'll get the other great song there. That's been your jam since she dropped it out, that song, Cowboy Carter?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, thank you for the hype. I need you on all big events to just like, get me a big smile on my face. So thank you for that.
Definitely.
I've loved Blackbird since I was a kid. And the original Beatles version is, short but poignant and so classic, by Paul McCartney. And I sing it to my kids at night before bed. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. And then when Beyonce dropped her latest album and Blackbird was on it, there are very few people in the world that can come up with a new version of a Beatles song or just any kind of like classic song and make it their own and make it, I mean, in its own way, as good or better. And so
the full fact to that. I had to get the facts.
Yeah. So anyway, when you were asking what song would be good to have as part of the show, that one immediately came to mind because I had just sung it to my kids the night before, and then after we chatted, I was listening to both of them again, and I guess in a way, given kind of where I'm at in my life right now, also poignant for other reasons. So just like a lot of reasons to just love that song.
That song represents you so well, especially the first few lines in there, because of how much adversity that you overcome, and yet you've still risen above despite any broken wings, literally broken bodies that you've had to deal with. And you just shine the way that you have, not only the physical adversities that you've overcome, but a lot of the mental adversities that you overcome in this wild sport of track and field and athletics, in particular with everything with the 2012 Olympics and all that. But before we get into that and everything, it is a unique day for you as well, because get the Stevie out right there. Give me the happy birthday. Happy birthday. It's a wonderful happy birthday for this individual is it still Virgo season, by the way?
It is. Yep. I'm squeezed in at the end of Virgo season. Here I am, September 19th.
Yes. I mean, what's funny is that I didn't realize until 2 days in terms of prepping the interview with you that's your birthday, because you told me when we were at NBC in Stanford. Full disclosure, people, we were both, as obviously you all know, that Shannon was calling a lot of the morning sessions for the track and field portion of the Paris Olympics, and I was working at the Paris Olympics as well for NBC remotely in Stamford, Connecticut. You told me that your birthday was the next month in September, and then I remembered, and of all things, willing, it lined up with us talking right as of the recording of this interview, at least.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, so it's a big one for me. I turned 40 today, I came into the month of September honestly feeling pretty anxious about that. Thank you.
It's still in the 20s right there. Like it's still
yeah. But this month has just been probably like, because of some of these unexpected things that we're going to be talking about that have happened in this month of September. I'm like, maybe this next decade is going to be a great one. And so yeah, here we are. I love that we get to chat today. What a fun birthday present.
No doubt about it, and glad to give that to you, because you truly just meeting you, just throughout the career of just following you, obviously, you always were a genuine, transparent person that was a really kind person, despite being a world class competitor who wanted to win. You were always still someone that was really easy to talk to from media colleagues, someone that wasn't going to badmouth competitors at all. Not that, hey, sometimes you may need to because some competitors being rude to you.
You might want to sometimes, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
try as much as possible to focus on the all the positives that there's always things that we can complain about, and there's always things that we can be grateful for. And I am a perfectionist. I often am critical and hard on myself, but I really try to always see, how do I see the glass half full? How do I see the opportunity that's there? How do you see the best in the situation? And, as much as possible, try to do that. And when it comes to, people like yourself, I feel grateful that there's other individuals that care as passionately about our incredible sport of track and field as I do, and that would be willing to commit their time and energy to you know making it the best it can be. And so definitely gratitude for you and colleagues within the media space, because you're helping us tell the story of why this matters.
Give a full all to that. I appreciate. Give it a y'all right there. That was real right there, Jennifer. You to say that for me, and I really appreciate that from you. And with you being part of this next decade of broadcasting, because this was your first Olympics broadcasting, you were natural with it, where you could tell some of the athletes when they have post race interviews or interviews in general that they really have that little cadence of explaining a sport as well as having the personality and enjoying it. And you really enjoyed broadcasting your first Olympics. So, as the person that's a perfectionist like you are, did you feel that you did great? Because you did great. You showed your
Yeah,
person.
thank you. I had such a great experience. I got very lucky that the team I got to work with included y- people like Bill Spalding and Rich O'Connor, who have, you know, years, decades of experience. And so they were really excellent leaders. They saw myself, Don Harper, and Darrell Hill, all of us. We've been accomplished as athletes, but we are newer into this broadcasting space. We've done things here and there, but to have an opportunity to work with NBC for the Olympics is the pinnacle. At least for me, that was like a dream goal. And that, when you come into that dream goal, it isn't always you aren't always blessed to have a team that is as kind and supportive, and that works so well together. And from when we were in the booth, the ability and comfort we had, the rapport that we had amongst one another, grounded on intelligence and expertise. I mean, everybody brought their A game, which was awesome. But even outside of the booth, we would eat meals together. We would watch the races together. We would scream our heads off together.
Witness to
It
that.
was,
Exactly we're
yeah,
doing.
it was so fun. I felt so blessed, that was my first kind of post racing Olympic experience.
And yet, even with that, you training for that New York Marathon here, which I'm gonna be at for sure and cheering you on. Not necessarily me running in it, but you in it just adds to you adding to that post race, at least off the track career, while you're continuing to have that leisure with that and still have that competitive fire in that way.
Yeah.
Man. And speaking competitive fire, from you talking about the Irish tap dancing scene you talked about times of choosing that over ballet and then working your way into saying, hey, I really enjoy this with track, and what you did all the way in high school to do what you did in the state of California, which is hard as heck to do, as Sacred Heart Cathedral. That is when did you feel the love of the sport then your freshman year on, or was it even before then for you in
Mm.
terms of loving how track became?
Honestly, I fell in love with running later. Like I love dance first, and I love the creative aspect of it. And When I started running, I was fortunate to kind of show my ability quickly. I was, yeah, California is a really hard state to compete in, but I've always liked being a small fish in a big pond because it's an opportunity to, if you shift your perspective to the fact that, when you're surrounded by people that are better than you, it's an opportunity to observe and learn and, challenge yourself to improve. And so, I've always been wired in that way. And I've loved that challenge of self improvement. But when it came to running itself, I think in high school, I just started it because my friends were doing it and I was successful at it. So I kept doing it. And then by the end of high school, there was this opportunity to get a college scholarship for running, an athletic scholarship. And so it was more of like, okay, well, it's really hard to get in college. College is expensive. A scholarship would be, life changing. And so then I, ultimately ended up at Duke, and I had a great coach, Kevin Germain, who has just now started back at Duke as the coach. Um, but still, even at Duke, it was, I just wanted to perform well because that was my commitment. But I also had thought like, okay, I have to get good grades because once college is done, I have to get a job and figure out what comes next. Um,
Need I mention magna cum laude right here
yeah,
at Duke all the way. I'm glad that you mentioned because we have to give you the Duke fight. So we got to. Sorry to interrupt it because I wanted to really talk about that portion for you,
oh, thank-
especially the English, love of the English language, and then the film stuff.
yeah.
But as you were saying, in terms of still having that love figured out or getting
Yeah. Yeah. So like it was um it was only by like the nearing the end of my collegiate career where I was able to be, win an NCAA championship indoors, come back like an hour and a half later, get second. I won the mile an hour and a half later, came back, got second in the 3K. And suddenly there was like a lot more attention on me. And I started hearing from my coach that there was the potential to run professionally, which, to be completely honest, hadn't even been on my radar. I wasn't from a sporting family. I just didn't even I was kind of tunnel vision in school and just didn't even realize that was an option. And so I had a redshirt year in college and I ran some races in I think I raced in one of the back then it was the Golden League. So I raced the Golden League race down in Carson, California, and then I raced some those Harry Jerome Classic races in Canada. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, if you're a professional athlete for track and field, you could spend the summers racing in Europe. And I was like, that's so cool. And then the opportunity to try to be the best in the world at something, I was like, that's incredible. And so I think like that kind of shifting into my whole life being running was a more gradual one. And for my pro career, I love the opportunity to challenge myself to try to be, as I said, the best in the world at something that's a big, hairy, audacious challenge. But those are the kinds I like. But I would say just loving running for running's sake, even that has been within the last few years as I've been able to separate out the business of sport and like frankly some of that business aspect of sport is really brutal and toxic and heartbreaking. Now that I'm kind of separated from that and I can, go on runs with like, local running clubs, or I can just get out in the morning for 30 or 40 minutes to clear my head, or go in these road races where there's such fun energy where it's people just doing the sport because they love the sport. Um, I think it's been in my late 30s that I was able to redefine my relationship with running and make it not just about like if you do well your performance matters, but instead like I want to do this for me because I love it and because I love the people that are in this running community.
you feel that you love it you feel that you love it more now than ever before
I
because
think it's a purer love. Like it's just like I want to do it. Whereas for so it had gotten to the point by the end of my pro career where it was like, when you've eaten too much sugar and you're just like, oh, the idea of more sugar just makes me sick to my stomach. Like I had just been pushing and working so hard for so long as a pro athlete and like sacrificing relationships, like I couldn't go to weddings and I had to miss so much. And fortunately my parents, my now husband Pablo, like they were willing to get behind those goals. But I had gotten to a certain point where I just, the idea of running, it felt so forced. And so it was, I think, yeah, my relationship with running now is more pure because I'm doing it because I love it. And because I love the people that I've been able to surround myself now, as opposed to before, by just better people who just, are in the sport because they love the sport, not because they're looking to gain something from it.
And speaking of you now having that full love of track, we take it back to when you were at that campus on Durham University.
Yeah.
First, I want to ask you because you're one of the only one of the few cool dookies because you see you're from the Bay Area. I got so many New Jersey dookies, like, having the full stereotype for what it was,
Oh
particularly
boy, I bet. I
as
bet
you,
some of those.
as you know, but you're as Bay Area, San Francisco, wonderful as could be for people that meet people out in San Francisco. By the way, never San Fran people, never San Fran, never San Fran.
We
First,
have our moments too, but yeah, I didn't really, when it's funny in high school when you're all the way across the country, you don't necessarily, like, I didn't know many people who went to Duke. And so when I was looking, it was just, I loved the coach, Kevin Germain. The campus is gorgeous. It seemed like I could get a full athletic scholarship, and it seemed like a great opportunity. And then you get into a place and you realize all of the pros and all of the cons. But for me, when I was looking, it was just like, oh wow. And I think also this idea of adventure, like going to the other side of the country, I didn't expect that my life would take me into this pro running career that would have me traveling the world. And so for me as a high schooler, the idea of getting to live on the East Coast and meet people from different places was really, it was really exciting.
did you get a chance to go to a few Duke basketball games? Was this
I did.
AJ Redick's time there? I'm trying to remember because
Yep. Yep. It was JJ Redick. Yeah, that was his time. And Coach K, of course, was there for quite a while, but he was the coach throughout my entire collegiate career.
isn't it wild seeing JJ Redick now be the Lakers head coach? I don't I'm like,
We were all grown up. What happened?
would you, because we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but you're not only being so focused and so competitive in terms of not only track, but being the best student as possible. And that's why you got that magna cum laude the way that you did. And being a film major, is that something where you said you still want to think about doing a bit? Because you clearly got a love of culture and knowing yourself. Is that something you still definitely want to do?
I think what I know I want to do is continue to tell the story of like what an athlete is and can be beyond the kind of archetype that existed for millennia. I mean, we're seeing more and more people doing that now, but when I was growing up, I never I it seems crazy to say, but I never wanted to be an athlete because in the 80s and 90s, whenever I watched sports on TV, the only option was NFL, NBA, and MLB. And I could see these incredible humans doing impressive feats, but all of them were guys, all of them were boys, and I was a girl. And so that wasn't a career path I could ever imagine for myself. And so I grew up, pursuing excellence wherever I could find it. I knew I wanted to try to be the best in the world at something or strive for that at least. And so I kept trying to search for, where I had that natural ability. And then, when I would find a place where it seemed like I had potential, work really, really hard. But I look back and and I definitely think the reason I didn't want to be an athlete is because the athlete was so narrowly defined. And my husband, who's from Mexico, um, he felt the same way in his own way. He, as a male athlete from Mexico, track and field, there weren't any great role models or, few great role models of that. There still, I think, is a lack of development path for a lot of these Latino athletes that have so much natural talent but don't have great development tools. And so both he and I have spoken often. Pablo is he works in finance, but he was also a fine arts major. So he has he's a painter. And so both of us share that left brain, right brain, and we speak often about the desire to expand the idea of what an athlete is and can be. And so to your question about, what comes next after my pro career, I think it's, the opportunity with NBC was huge to be able to share, insight, to add diversity. Our team was incredibly diverse and also highly accomplished, and I'm really proud of that. And I think that the more opportunities we have for athletes to be telling their story in first person and to be creating more narratives around what an athlete is, like when I was competing, I remember vividly in 2014 wearing lipstick to honor my grandmother. And after indoor nationals, where I won back to back. I won the mile on a Saturday and the 2 mile or 3K on a Sunday or whatever it was. But I run both the same weekend on separate days. And the news articles the day after weren't about the fact that I, had the double win. They were all about the fact that I'd worn lipstick. And then the kind of comments were like, should she or shouldn't she? And some people loved me for it and some people didn't. But it 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 highlighted for me the fact that even a conversation about self-expression in sport, lipstick, just lipstick, speaks to this really narrow idea that 2014, we were still thinking that an athlete should just be this one little within this one little box of definition. And so I feel passionate about kind of expanding that.
Yeah, you expressed it at the iTech Council, those things, and how that was
Yeah.
just so wild just to think, particularly since, it's not the only person as a distance runner that has ever quote unquote glammed up, and still some people that were just being ridiculous the way they were,
Yeah.
and misogynistic,
Yeah.
sexist, or at least hypocritical, double
Hmm.
standards towards that
Hmm.
perspective there. So, but you
Hmm.
showed the personality that you were on track, and yet you were always this fair runner that you were, and the way that you always conducted yourself was something that led you to be a personality that could really do media the way that you've done, with that, and done it so well. So I mean, look, if Netflix needs a
Thank you.
documentary director, you with that one, or at least, hey, keep it NBC, we keep it Peacock with that,
Yeah.
in that way. So this is something where you really were a trailblazer for American women's distance running by getting, that placement in worlds, having the best world finish back then in 2019, in 2009, where we did
Yeah.
regularly in the 1500s globally. These at least
Yeah.
top 10 finishes for you with that. Was that something at the beginning when you turned professionally, rising the way that you did, doing your thing at '08 trials and winning the way you
Mhm.
did? Was that something where you said, hey, now I really want to be that American difference maker globally, and really be
Mhm.
able to be someone to get a medal at Worlds and Olympics the way you're pushing on to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think I surprised myself that first year as a pro in '08. I had been coming off of an injury, so I had had a really successful collegiate career, but it was cut short with a stress fracture in my left hip in '07. And so about 1 year out from the Olympic trials, I was on crutches, not running, and eh, I had set my mind on making the Olympic team. Like that was what I was focused on. My goal was just I believed deeply that I could come back a year later and have a shot at least at making the Olympic team, to then over deliver and not only make the team but win the Olympic trials and then make the Olympic final. I definitely surprised myself even in that moment. And in '09 I was kind of right in the mix for a medal, and then to come away with one was also kind of it all happened so fast. I don't think I quite appreciated what a accomplishment it was. And then from 2010 through 2012, 2010 and 11, I was a bit injured in 11, and so I was making the world team, but not. I think I wasn't the top American necessarily. And by 2012, really feeling like convinced I would make the Olympic final and feeling like I had a shot for the medal. I think throughout my career, though, one of the biggest things was this idea, like, I like trying to be a trailblazer or trying to do things that other people haven't done. I think it's just, for me, it's been that natural progression of, like, I don't even go in thinking of it as like, I want to do things people haven't done, but I think I've always thought about progress in terms of I want to be the best at the level I'm at. And so it was a bit of a shock to me by the time I got to the highest level and suddenly, like, that was the highest level. And then it was, okay, how do I then continue to excel within it? Um, but certainly the idea of getting to try to make history, to try to do something that hadn't been done before was a hard, scary, but also exciting challenge.
We're here with Shannon Rowbury Soares on Overall Overtime, and one of those challenges that you had to overcome was everything with not only 2012 Olympics, but then what happened
Mhm.
in 2016 by being close, and now with the news of
Yeah.
what with Zaziana getting disqualified, what a lot of people have felt, what you endured in 2012 1500-meter final as being in around the dirtiest race, one of the dirtiest races ever in any
Yeah.
global final, and now you being in line for the bronze medal that you have long deserved 12 years after, everything with that, after all the disappointment you felt, in Rio towards it. First, I want to
Yeah.
ask you is do you know when if the IAAF and IOC if they're going to contact you about this new official, because this is the type of thing that has a lot of people wondering, why do I follow track and field if we have
Yeah.
level of not only questions about who's clean or not, but then the results and the long
Yeah.
time it's happening.
Yeah. It's it's crazy. Like, I found out um at the same time as everybody else. I didn't even realize that Tomashova's had, I guess, in reading after, like, I read and reread the cast press release. You know, it looks like from that they found her. They tested her in December of 2021, and so this has been going through the legal process since 2021. I wasn't aware that it was going through the court process, so I had like I kept trying to wrap my head around the fact that, like, this there would just never be justice in this instance, that, like, Tomashova, who'd already served a ban, was set to be elevated to the medal podium. Aragawi, who served a ban, is set to be elevated, and that I would sit in fourth behind those two athletes. I just it was the doping in sport was the one thing that just finally broke me, that I just got to the point where I was like, I can't keep pretending I have a shot when I have all this evidence that cards are stacked against me. Um and so yeah, I was completely shocked when I saw the press release, cuz there's 10 years for them to retest and kind of finalize the results, and we were at 12 years. And so I literally, while I was part of that NBC Olympic team for Paris, I couldn't even watch Tokyo in 2021. Paris, I was able to kind of engage with, and I kept telling myself, Shannon, you need to let it go. Like, you cannot let this eat you alive anymore. Like, you have to just move on, be proud of fourth if that's what you're going to have. And it was just so hard for me to kind of move on, but I was trying to make peace with it, and then suddenly this whole um like, these feelings that I had really buried were kind of have been broken open again. And I mean, I'm grateful. I had literally given up hope on justice in this situation, but in terms of what comes next, I have no idea. I I reached out to everybody I could. I reached out to USATF. I still haven't heard back. That was over 2 weeks ago. I reached out to USOPC. I did get a hold of Sarah Hirschland, who's the president, but she basically shared that they can't do anything until all the other steps along the way, place this into their hands. And I did. I'm grateful to Travis Tigert at USADA. He was the one person I was able to talk to on the phone who helped. He couldn't give me he didn't have any great specifics to share about the next steps in the process, but he was able to at least share with me his understanding of some of the steps along the way. And I know those include things like, you know, World Athletics needs to update the results and send it to the IOC. The IOC needs to update the results and send it to USOPC. That's when then Sarah Hirschland, who I mentioned with USOPC, that's when they can start to think about a reallocation, what that real allocation looks like. But there's like no idea of timeline and no clear process for athletes to have already had their heart, put through the ringer, and then this news gets dropped at the same time as everybody else, and I'm trying to process this life-changing information while friends and family are reaching out with, like, bless their hearts, like, kind words and questions, and I don't even know what to make of it all. And so, yeah, I don't know what comes next. I don't know what the timeline looks like. But I do know that if I ever have an opportunity in the future, like, I would love to advocate for, other athletes in situations like mine. Alicia Montano and I did talk. She's in the same, like, trying to piece it together herself. And we both talked about how our athletes deserve better. And, at the very least, if it comes to this, like, disqualification and reallocation process, to be able to have someone, you know, do them the kindness of, like, maybe either breaking the news or giving them a call to, like, explain what they can expect.
The thing that boggles my mind is Matt Siegel or no one from USATF at the very least. They haven't talked to you in a fortnight, 2-week period at all.
I know. I haven't heard, no one from Nike has called, like, nobody. Like, it was crazy. Like, I know they're all so busy. Like, I don't expect that, what's happening in my life should take priority, but, like, in 2.5 weeks, like, these people that, like you would
Statement,
think that
a simple
it's,
statement they could at least publish.
yeah,
Say,
yeah.
I mean, come on now. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
literally called it. You literally are visible calling the games of the Paris Olympics. Like,
And it's like, it would be the first ever medal by an American woman in the 1500. Like, it's like, yes, like, it's not just a big deal to me. Like, it's part of the history of the sport. And and that specific Olympic final was just so, like, 6 of the top 9 have now been disqualified. It's just, yeah, it's been that aspect, the way that it's kind of the kind of like, nobody knew. It seems like nobody is taking ownership, and I'm doing my best to, like, find out what I can. And like I said, there have been some people that did, Travis Tigert, like I said, I was able to connect with him really quickly. He shared what he was able to share. But and Sarah Hirschland did get back to me, but it's just been kind of crazy, like, just trying to, like, in a vacuum, in, like, an absence of information, just trying to figure out whatever I can.
well, you're figuring it out in a way with full support from us with that, and full support from
Thank
me and
you.
anyone in general with that. Final question, because we
Thank
can
you.
talk. We're gonna have many more talks for sure.
I
And
know, us
with
at NBC, we were like chatty Cathy's going on and on.
genuine soul you are, and that's what you be. Celebrating that 4-0 all the way
Yes.
with it, with Pablo, with your lovely children, Sienna Sebi. How you gonna
Yeah.
celebrate it?
Oh, well, I feel like this month has just already over delivered, because we had a family trip to the Galapagos, which is actually where I found out about the London Olympics, and Tomashova's disqualification, which was like the best birthday present a person could ever hope for. Um, and then, I've had the opportunity since getting back from our trip to have, like, a girls' night, a date night, and my husband Pablo will be taking me out to our favorite date spot in San Francisco, little French restaurant
Oh,
called L'Ardois. Yeah, go Pablo.
got
Um,
Mexican charms him all the way.
yeah,
Rice University,
yeah,
Rice University.
yeah, yep, yeah, yeah. I feel very lucky. Um, he was the person whose shoulder I cried on, sobbed on right after the London Olympics. He was the first person I saw after the race. And when I found out on September 3rd, when I found out about Tomashova's disqualification, he was the first person I was with him. I sobbed on his shoulder again there, but this time my kids were around me, and my son who's 2 and doesn't understand happy tears was just like, "I'm sorry, mommy. I'm sorry." And I was like,
Sebby wondering what's going on, and
you
look at how
know,
he's already protecting his mom like that. That
yeah. So it's I think, I feel very blessed, and that was the one thing that gave me solace throughout this whole journey, like all the highs and lows of sports, not just doping, but like, coaching and like shoe company things and maternity things and like all these things. I feel like the I've invested in I've been fortunate that my core people have been incredible. My parents, my husband, um, those core friends that I have just made it possible to reach for, the highest heights, because I always knew that if I failed that they would be there to catch me, that they loved me for me, and they were just proud of me for the work I put in, and for trying. And so I think more than anything this month, the experiences that I've had, there's been a lot of reflection on a lot of things, but at the end of the day, that investment in people is one that you'll never regret. You'll never go wrong if you invest in people.
well, this is why people invest in you. You invest your energy in people, and that just gets reciprocated back in terms of that servant leadership, that North Star that you are, those terms that you love using. You definitely exemplify that and then some. Give a round of applause indeed.
Thank you.
What a mini talks right there that we're gonna have, no doubt about it, because she is just such a new terrific media personality that the sport needs to continue to have. So give it the Beatles right there, y'all. Give it the Beatles. As we get out of the competition of overall overtime, this has been a blessing. Great Shannon Rowbury story. On a birthday, by the way, people. All your life. Glad you watched. And best single, USA, waiting for this moment. Don't let Jackie sing the ring. Come in and nowhere and congratulate her. Don't do that. Take it easy, y'all. Bye bye.
Thank you.